Every once in a while, a book comes that takes you along for a ride and drops you out at the end as a different person, and today's book is one such. Once, in a village, there was a goat. No one knew where she was born. The birth of an ordinary life never leaves a trace, does it? Can a goat narrate its story? If so, what would it say? Hello everyone, welcome back to BooksDotCom Litgyan with me Subhashini. In the translation series, today's book is Poonachi, and a few of you may wonder why Perumal Murugan's Poonachi gained so much attention for it being just a story of a goat. Because this is a comeback novel after Murugan's self-imposed literary silence in January 2015. So it has more reasons to be celebrated. He gave up writing after protest against his novel Madhurubagan, one part woman in English. That novel, set in his hometown, was about a childless woman who participated in a sex ritual during a temple festival in order to conceive. A scenario Murugan says was based on a historical fact. I'll review that book for you some other day. The 55-year-old Indian writer's Poonachi, otherwise known as the story of a black goat, has been welcomed by critics as an allegory about social oppression and authoritarian surveillance of the weak and dispossessed. Murugan has humorously described why his protagonist is a goat. "I'm fearful of writing about humans, even more fearful of writing about gods," he says, a jab at the huge furore that followed his one-part woman, which talks of both gods and humans. "It is forbidden to write about cows or pigs," he says, which is another sly reference to the growing religious intolerance in the country over meaty issues. In the beginning, it just feels like reading a fable and made me reminisce with my childhood days where I grew up reading Panchatantra, Jataka tales and Hitopadesha. All these folk tales instilled morals in that tender age, which in fact imprinted a permanent mark lasting for a lifetime. Except in this case, it's considered to be an adult novel, but I'm pretty sure it still has the same effect. You begin to view this world a little differently once you start reading these kinds of books. Murugan's plot involves a poor old man and his wife, neither of them are named, who live in an arid farming village in southern India. An extraordinarily tall stranger walks up to the old man and announces that he has been wandering from village to village looking for the right person to receive his black baby goat. "She's no ordinary kid," the giant man says. "She's truly a miracle, an animal certain to carry litters of 7. Though skeptical but still grateful, the old man takes this tiny kid home. Through a seeming act of providence, the old couple receive a day-old female goat as a gift. Thus begins the story of Poonachi, the little orphan goat. What was a fairy tale so far now drifts into the humdrum details of village life. Sized like a kitten, she is aptly named Poonachi by his wife. Poonai translates to cat in Tamil. She grows quite attached to the goat, devotes herself to the difficult job of keeping such a small, sickly creature alive, mothering her to good health. The couple don't have much to spare, but the effort revives them both. It had been a long time since there was such pleasant chit-chat between the couple, Murugan writes. Because of the kids' sudden entry into their lives, they ended up talking about the old days. The little kid strengthens the couple's ties with its neighbors and even between the couple themselves. This arouses a tenderness in readers' hearts, a gentleness and a magnanimity rarely discovered in today's works. What follows is an intimate parable told through the views of shepherd, his wife and Poonachi, each telling their suffering as the goat grows into adulthood and fulfills the fate promised by the giant mysterious man. If you had read books like Animal Farm, Heart of a Dog, Jungle Book, Stuart Little or even Moss, you would be familiar with the concept of anthropomorphism, where basically animals are ascribed with human behavior and characteristics. Poonachi also falls in this particular genre. However, the book decides to keep humans as important as Poonachi. The goat is anthropomorphized specifically to the women in Indian society, or let's say women in general. The rural milieu, the very flavor and atmosphere is captured gorgeously by the writer through knowledgeable insights. It's a timeless representation of fresh pools, tender buds, and cud-chewing cattle of a far-flung village. Yet the writer is aware of rural hardships. When the old lady stands in line for hours to procure government identification for Poonachi, the sorrows of the states come pouring in. Suddenly, we are reminded of the unforgiving world outside this idyllic microcosm. No one knows exactly what the identification does, or why a citizen has to face such misery before even getting a glimpse of a taunting, unhelpful, threatening government official. The harping about the state's good intentions, convoluted reasons of having to stand in an unforgiving queue, and constant glorification of the regime are discomfortingly reminiscent of our own situation. The rows upon rows of villagers tottering in the line to get their cattle verified and being flogged and punished ruthlessly if they dare to faint of hunger or heat is a direct parallel to citizens of this nation, of suffering piled on the already deprived. Several social and political references are provided, and our minds definitely wander angrily to fellow country people who trudge for days to fulfill an official diktat but are spurned and ridiculed, and their work is left undone. If anyone dares to protest this injustice, they are reprimanded. Speak softly, sir, the regime has ears. Murugan examines these ears and exposes their worthlessness, puts them for everyone to understand their injustice and begin to rally against them. The helplessness of the couple bounces back, ultimately to the readers themselves. This is where we realize the story has evolved from an animal fable to a political satire. Poonachi is undoubtedly loved by her family, but she is often helpless. She has to follow what they decide for her. She doesn't enjoy it always. When extremely distraught, all she can do is cry and move on. She clearly represents what females of our species do in similar predicament. In some parts, it feels like it's not Poonachi who's describing herself, but it is us. We ourselves are reading all our struggles through it. Her life is difficult. A nanny goat refuses to let her suckle her. An eagle tries to attack her, and a wild cat tries to make her its prey. But Poonachi endures it all. Perumal Murugan has successfully captured the essence of being a woman in the form of a goat. Her struggles and dreams represent the innocence of daughters in our society. And as she grows old, the weight of responsibilities and expectations grows tenfold, and how she sacrifices everything that is of hers in order to subdue that burden. As you follow her story from forest to habitation, independence to motherhood, you recognize in its significant moments the depth and magnitude of your own fears and longings, fueled by the instinct for survival. It is a book written about women by a man, a remarkably accurate account of women's life by man. I have read many books written by men about women, but none like this one. This one is respectful, clear, and open with no loops to bound the nature of women. The main highlights of the story include family bond, love, and longing. How the simple village lives struggle through times of hardships, and how the people bond with their livestock. We humans do a lot of unfathomable things, and this story makes you see it through the eyes of a goat. The transition of behavior and emotions in the family, community, and village is something which is beautifully described. There is a very prominent, recurring, and touching theme throughout the book. Something we see and witness every day, without ever really sparing a thought. The plot is exceptionally well written and equally smoothly translated. Simple language, funny at instances, and you sail through it, wanting to delve further into the life of this little, inquisitive, intelligent, and precious goat. Poonachi savors the variety of flavors each plant offers, and is pleasantly surprised by the pungent treat of an onion. She enjoys the comfortable familiarity of her playmates Uthan and Ulumban, two slightly younger goats. she delights in a brief night of freedom in the forest that arouses both wonder and curiosity. Above all, she experiences the ecstasy of encountering Poovan, playful Poovan, whose smell and touch will haunt her dreams. In the past couple of years, Murugan has become a reliable and favorite author, and hence I didn't hesitate to pick this book. His books are always memorable even if they are not the best stories ever told. The narrative is honest, nothing is sugar-coated, and this book jabs your heart at the right places. The human characters aren't named, but the animals have beautiful names. What I loved most about the book was how the emotion of love between animals was written with conviction. Who can forget Poonachi's yearning and love for Poovan? Murugan's world of landscapes, animals, birds and asuras resembles the human world where the old couple we walk with shows the duality of human nature. The drought grows as love and affection are replaced with selfishness. This book is not just the emotional journey of Poonachi, but also is a very beautiful satire on society. Some of the events of the book are hard-hitting and leave us in a sullen mood. It is a stirring read reminding us of the goats sacrificed during our festivals. Yes, but this is not a tale seeking sympathy for a goat's assassination. It's a call for innocence and parity, of naivety destroyed by a lecturing society, of a society trapped in nonsensical rules. Coming to his writing style, it is simple and so is the theme. Beginners can easily go for it. Murugan's prose style is elegant and modern even when he is describing the life of a subaltern community. In most of his works, the lives of his characters are inextricably merged with the terrain and landscape, trees and plants, along with birds and animals. Poonachi is a differently imagined story composed using the same elements. The book majorly provides the insights of rural India with the perspective of a goat and simultaneous representation of the scene where a farmer goes through an inevitable cycle of death, hunger crisis and survival. It is also a blend of all the uncanny ways human civilization have adapted to function since eons to the present and the emotions of an innocent animal who undergoes exploitation by human beings for their own good. Having read his novels, I did not find this path difficult. Masterly nuanced, Murugan's tale forces us to reflect on our own responses to hierarchy and ownership, selflessness and appetite, love and desire, living and dying. The goat carries the burden of being different all her life. One of the best lines that describes this is, "None of the sheep had their neck and forelegs bound together with a rope. That was only done to the proud goats, who were forced to look at the ground as they walked. Goats always try to break free of their shackles. If it was in your nature to bow down, why would anyone shackle you?" It is equally an expression of solidarity with the animal world and the female condition. The tale is also a commentary on our times, on the choices we make as a society and a nation, and the increasing vulnerability of individuals, particularly writers and artists who resist when they are pressed to submit. At the Jaipur Literature Festival, Perumal Murugan was questioned, "A large populace reads your work only as translations. Don't you think this creates a loss of your original text?" To this, Murugan answered, "Barely a quarter of the ideas in my head get transferred to paper as I write." So, there is a kind of loss inherent in the very act of writing. Why should it then come as a surprise during translating? N. Kalyan Raman has been translating Tamil fiction and poetry into English for the last 2 decades, for which he received the Pudumai Pithan Award in 2017. Some of the fiction writers he made accessible to the Anglophone audience like me include the late Asokamitran, Devi Bharati, Vasanthi, Perumal Murugan and Poomani. The story of a goat translated from Tamil by him jumps nimbly from fantasy to realism to parable. How much it resonates with you will depend on the breadth of your sympathies and your interest in adult tales that include the thoughts and feelings of animal characters. Being new to Tamil literature, I would say Kalyan Raman did a commendable job with the translation. The translation is spot on, and this should be the gold standard for how translation should work. Some parts did sound a bit funny, but it went well since I hadn't read the original Tamil text. I do understand how difficult it is to get the translation right. He did retain some Tamil words as it is in the book, which kept the original essence intact. There were words he used that couldn't have been replaced whatsoever for better ones. The style and flow of the translation is smooth, pleasant, making it a heartwarming read. It isn't that the language is kept simple, it is that you can feel the Tamil in the translation, in the adas, the ayyas, and the general flow of conversations. The English in this book has a Tamil flavor. Kudos to Kalyan Raman for that. Though the translation has been done tastefully, I would still advise people who can read Tamil to read the original. Also make sure to read the introduction of the book by author and translator's note at the end. Overall, this is a quick read, only 170 to 192 pages that is able to capture very deep human emotions. This slim book packs a critical punch and exposes the cracks in the functioning of the government, the feminist discourse, the bonds in the private familial sphere, lost love, and the extent of cruelty that can be exhibited towards an animal by a human being. It blends metaphorically storytelling with fantastical elements as well as draws on religious themes and imagery at times. I was uncomfortable at times, which I believe was intentional on the author's part. You will relate to Poonachi's struggles and her journey. You will sympathize and empathize and shed a tear here and there. Throughout this journey, you will laugh, you will cry, and you will feel with the book, letting the author pull your emotional strings at his will. Maybe you will go and hug your pet. I would recommend this book to the fans of fairy tales, fantasy, parables, mystical fiction, speculative fiction, and magical realism. If you want to read a completely different style of storytelling, if you are looking to read works of Indian authors from different states, especially translated works, or if you like books written from an animal's point of view, then this book is for you. What happens when you mix Premchand's masterpiece Godan and Orwell's Animal Farm in a blender and condense it? A black goat Poonachi is born. But to understand this, you must have read both the above mentioned books. It took me too long to write this review. While preparing this, I couldn't decide what to say and what not to. This is no conventional book you read. This is kind of a book you read once in a while. I have tried my best to do this. Hope that my review does justice to this book and hope you like my review. If you are listening this on Spotify or Apple, please do rate and review our show. This would help us a lot to reach more lovely people like you. And you know where to find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to share your comments. You can also write to me at BooksDotCom by Subhashini @gmail.com. Thank you for staying tuned till the end. See you in the next episode of Books.com. Till then, sayonara.